You're listening to Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. Please check us out. We are on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and downloadable as always on iTunes, and we love subscriptions and positive comments. I'm here today with gamer, game developer, and head of development at Giant Spacekat.
Yeah, that's it.
Brianna Wu. Brianna, how are you?
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me on.
I am so excited to have you on. I actually heard an interview that you did, a little mini interview in NPR. And then I read one of your articles after that, and I was like, I have to get her on.
Oh, man. Can I tell you about that interview? I was on vacation, and I was actually at Disney, and they're calling me while I'm down there. I've just shipped a game that took me 3 years. I'm trying to get off crunch, and like NPR is calling me and trying to get me to do an interview. So I'm trying to find a phone down there at Disney World that like lives up to NPR audio engineer standards. So the fact that you were able to hear it is just it nearly didn't happen.
Well, it was a really great interview, and it definitely piqued my interest. So for the listeners who don't know, you are a female game developer, and you just released a game that is it actually the first game that's ever been released that has all female characters? Is that a statistical fact?
No, okay. Gosh, I've never said that. No, but it is, my studio is one of the very few studios in the entire industry that is, we're majority women at our studio. In fact, the only guy that contributed to our game is my husband, who, his day job is in patent law, and he would, come home at night and model. But, the full-time staff of our game, the people that, were being paid for their day job to make it was all women. I mean, women voice acted the thing, women game designed it, women play tested it, women animated it, women engineered it, women did the levels, women did the texture work. So, I mean, it's a real statistical aberration in the game industry.
Well, I think that's awesome. And I think it's kind of silly for a lot of, I know that you guys have had a little pushback and you've gotten some hate mail and other negative things, but it's just ridiculous because female gamers are the fastest growing sector of the gaming industry. So it's just silly that these other companies wouldn't embrace that. I mean, obviously women are going to want to play games created by women.
Sure.
I love playing games, but you get kind of sick of like I look in the women gaming section and there's a lot of games where you're playing a hairstylist and painting nails and you're
and I think that's why that happens is a really complicated question, because you have an industry that's it's men are the ones running the game companies. They're the ones with the venture capital. They're the ones with the purse strings to make it happen. And, they see like, hey, there are a lot of women out there that want to play games. But it's men designing the games that they're going to sell to women. It ends up being the most awful female stereotype sometimes.
They are. I'm not even exaggerating. That's actually one of the games that I downloaded just because I was looking for some games to play. And I was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, this is like I own my own salon and I paint nails. Like,
well, that is certainly the gameplay that I am interested in. And I just want to say there's nothing wrong with being, stereotypically feminine or liking any of that stuff. Like, more power to you. But I think the problem is more often than not, these games for girls end up being like candy-coated pink stereotypes that, it kind of seems like it's out of the 50s. Do you know what I mean?
It is. I think that the issue is not that they're a stereotype. It's that they're very one-dimensional perceptions of women. And the crazy thing is, guess what, guys out there? Women are not these mystical unicorns. We're actually people, and a lot of women like the same things that you guys like.
Right. It's so true. This drives me crazy because I sometimes see guys in the tech industry talking about women like we're this unknowable, you can't understand them creature. And
we're just emotional storms of crying and pink candy and we. So I think that's great. I love that all of the characters in your game are female too. And, this is such a minor thing that could I mean, it seems so minor, but it's minor yet major. It's like, when I was little, I loved playing Street Fighter, and I always wanted to be Chun-Li because I felt weird being a male character. I'm like, I'm a woman, or I was a girl. I'm a girl. I want to be the girl character. So something as simple as integrating, I think in the NPR article, you talked about, you were playing, I don't know which first-person shooter game, but there was no female characters until recently. Was it Modern Warfare? What was it?
Oh, yeah. It was the last Call of Duty game. There's so many of them. Call of Duty Ghosts is the first one to have female soldiers in it.
And that's just crazy because there's so many women in the military. And it's just, it's like I said, it's very minor, but it's very major. It's just like when you would play Super Mario Brothers, you wanted to be the princess, not because you wanted to be a princess, because you want a character that's slightly relatable to you, right?
Right. Well, and they've done studies that show this is much more important for women than it is for men. And I think it's when you're a woman, so many books, so many movies, so many video games, like culture in general is kind of geared more towards men. And I think when you're a woman in the society, you kind of have to learn very early on to kind of put yourself like in another person's shoes, like empathetically, because of these narratives. But I think the problem with Street Fighter is, there's always a girl character. And, if games have women in them, they're typically like one girl. And, it sends this unintentional message that women are a type. Like men can be absolutely anything.
There will be like 8 male characters and then one girl character.
Right. That's the girl. So yeah, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating, and I don't think it would. I mean, I don't know anything about programming or that side of things. So maybe you can tell me, how hard is it to physically create those avatars? I mean, is it crazy ridiculous to say that there could be 4 or 5 girl characters just in the queue in case, or am I being out of line?
Well, see, this is where I can talk about this stuff all day. There is an engineering cost for, creating skeletal meshes. There is. And, it's not any more expensive from the beginning to, create a woman versus a man. I mean, it's the same work unless you've got, like crazy, joints in the boobs or something like that.
That would be great.
Right. Women do tend to have more complicated hair from an engineering perspective. But it's not any harder to make women. What is hard is these companies from the beginning make engineering choices. Man. They did it in Payday. I could name you 100 games off the top of my head. And then they have these systems built up where then changing the systems to include a female character does have an engineering cost for it. But that's a consequence of it not being a priority for the team from the word go.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that there's certain parts of our society, I know there was a huge backlash with the whole rape culture issue that came up in the past, it's come up for the past few years in a row, and a lot of men saying, oh, it doesn't exist, you guys are crazy, rape culture's not real. But I mean, but these things are real. I mean, you can see it in gaming. You can pick up any game, and at a store and see that it's predominantly catered towards males, and even though the statistics show that women are the fastest growing, a group in the field. So in that marketing level. So it doesn't make any sense for them to be just putting out men on a financial perspective.
Right. It's everywhere in the industry. I was looking at a tech review today. This is on The Verge, like probably the most prestigious tech site right now. And they come out with a review of a major product. It's an Android wearable watch that ties to your cell phone. And, they shoot this video of it and they give complicated, detailed reviews of the viewing angle and, all this minutia. And they don't even mention that the watch is styled for men and it's too big for a woman to wear. And it's just this masculine assumption that is everywhere in the tech industry. It's in video games. It's a consequence of their hiring decisions because these teams tend to, frankly, not hire women. And they're very insular. So you have men talking to men. And there's nothing evil about it. Like they're not sitting there smoking a cigar Mad Men style.
I was about
like
to say that.
Yeah, they don't like keep women out of the door. But a consequence of that is women are never a priority, or that perspective is not included. So no one is on their team saying, hey guys, maybe you want to, include this a bit, or maybe this way of presenting this is a little sexist, or this might push women away. No one is talking to them about that. So it's a viewpoint that's not included.
Now, this isn't just an issue in tech or gaming as a whole. Actually, it's a huge issue in marketing as well, in the marketing industry and advertising industry, where that coveted male 18 to 32 age range is like, the holy grail of marketing. Yet the statistics show women actually are in charge of household spending.
Yeah.
And in spending in general. So I just want to tell these CEOs and execs, you guys are freaking idiots because you're missing out on where the money comes from. Like, is this for real? Like, what? Hello?
Right.
So
you have this conversation in gaming, like there's this, assumption of like a real gamer versus a fake gamer. And the fake gamer is this hard, like, I just think they don't even realize how
offensive
that they're claiming, but like claiming that like a 30-year-old mom that might play Candy Crush and spend a lot of money on that is like somehow less of a valued consumer than Mr. I'm gonna buy one game a year and it's Call of Duty, smash them up, and I sit on my couch and that $60 is all I'm going to spend for the year, which is a lot of people. And women's money is just as green as anybody else's. So I think it's a very myopic way of looking at it.
It is, and I still to this day can't wrap my mind around it, because to me, 1 + 1 = 2. And it seems like in these worlds, 1 + 1 = something else.
Right.
Because it's like, don't you want to make money? Don't you want the biggest return on your investment? Yet you're leaving out an entire gender. I mean, that's like craziness.
It's half the planet. It's literally half the planet.
I think it's over. I think women outnumber men by a small percentage. So I think it's actually over half the planet, which is...
Yeah. So, I mean, and why are we stuck here? It's shocking. And I have to say, this isn't just a gendered issue. This is, if you are, Black in our culture, you don't exist in the same way in games. If you are Hispanic, you're going to see like a lot of Hispanic criminals, but you're not going to see yourself as a hero at any point. If you're a Black woman, I can barely name
I can't think of any games. I
have an encyclopedic knowledge of female characters in games, and they just barely exist. And it's deeply wrong.
It is. And I think that there's been a shift in consciousness, and there's been a shift where there's like the old school thinking and then the new school thinking, and they're not lining up. And it's like some of these, even though gaming and tech are so new in technology, it's like the mindset and the structure of it is still in the old school, if that makes any sense.
It does. But I do have to say, I think that, have you followed Gamergate at all?
I don't.
Last week? Oh, I so envy that. This has been... Yeah, I agreed to this interview, and then ever since I agreed to it, the entire industry has been at war. And long story short, there are a bunch of people that are going after women in our industry in a really misogynist way. And there's any number of articles written about it. I don't want to derail the show talking about it, but I think that sometimes you make progress, and then the next generation comes along and it backslides a little bit.
It's like the pendulum. Every 10 years, the pendulum swings the other way.
You lose a little bit. And what we are seeing right now, this is an incredibly serious topic. I've had more threats and harassment over the last 2 weeks than I've ever had before. I have 3 friends that have quit the industry literally in the last 2 weeks, like really powerful women in our industry. You've seen one woman, like her entire life has been opened up to public obloquy, like people harassing her, going into her past. I have nude pictures of her sent in my feed. And what you have is this younger generation that feels incredibly powerless, and they're a mob. And they've learned that they can go take out women because they feel very threatened by this. And they did it to Samantha Allen. They tried to do it to Zoe Quinn. And you're really seeing women in the crosshairs of this kind of mob mentality right now.
I want to talk about this, and especially some of the articles that you have written, because, you know, I get this quite a bit in the stand-up world. I'm a female stand-up, and I get, you know, tons and tons of backlash all the time, and, you know, articles sent to me, oh, women aren't funny, blah blah blah. If women are funny, then how come there's so few women in the entertainment industry in stand up? If women are funny, how come there's so many successful women? And these people are not understanding the structures that underlay the entertainment industry. You know, for example, in stand up, you know, if you want to be a mother at all, stand up, it's very difficult to be a touring stand up. You're basically out of the game if you want to be a mom. And it's a lot different for male stand ups. If you have to deal with insane amounts of sexual harassment, male fans sexually harassing you. I have gotten threatening, you know, emails before, threatening emails from other women who are jealous, I mean, it's like craziness. And so many women quit the industry, and the male stand-ups that I know, I am telling you, do not get a 20th of the hatred that I have gotten, and other female comedians that I know have gotten. You know, I know female comedians that have been raped or sexually assaulted by comedy club owners, by comedy club patrons, and they felt scared to bring it forward because they felt they would never work again.
Yeah, I can, you know, and this is, I'm not in your industry, but it sounds a lot like being an engineer, a software engineer. I can tell you, like, when I go on Netflix and I look up stand-up comedy, I can't help but note that, yeah, the guys doing specials, like, they have their clothes on. And then if you look at Whitney or some of the, like, every single woman is naked or sexy, or there's, you know, innuendo there. And from my perspective as a woman, when I go to a comedy club, it seems like guys are the ones kind of retreading the same kind of, you know, like the same style of jokes. So, like, there's a real commonality to it. And the women are the ones I personally see that kind of tend to branch out and be talking about different life experiences. Like, it feels like more diverse comedy. And I think I would imagine, and maybe you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I've always imagined it's because in stand-up comedy, just like being a female software engineer, you have to be so much better, and your skin has to be so much tougher, and you have to love it that much more to be there. Like, do you think that's true?
It's totally true, and a lot of people don't understand. What I really wanted to talk about was the whole structure. So even though I'm sure you know all these talented female programmers and software engineers and stuff like that, it's not that they're not lacking in the industry. It's that the industry is so difficult for women that maybe women out there who want to do it are discouraged early on. And that's the same thing in stand-up. And so when I hear people saying women aren't funny, not only is it offensive and just not true, because actually my experience, I mean, I'm out at the comedy clubs every single night. The women that I see are actually funnier. But however, many of them quit because of the sexual harassment, because of the touring schedule, because they want to have a family and they can't do both the way that the structure is set up, because of the harassing emails, the death threats, the rape threats, sometimes the real rape that happens, not just rape threats. And, you know, maybe you go to a gaming convention, or as stand-up, you go to a show and you have someone, you know, as a fan talking to you afterwards, and you have gotten 10 or 13 threats that day as an email. You're like, maybe I shouldn't go out with this fan to get a drink, or maybe I shouldn't go out and hang out with this fan or sign an autograph or spend a little bit more time, because they could have been the anonymous person who sent me a threat.
Yeah, it's completely analogous. Every bit of what you just said in software engineering, a huge part of the culture actually also takes place out at clubs drinking. Like, guys love to go drink beers, and what they don't understand, I think, is when you are a woman in the software industry, like being out in almost all male company with alcohol being involved.
It's a little scary.
You know, it's a bad situation. And I do know women that have been sexually harassed, that have been fired from their jobs. I know some really awful incidents that have happened. And it's even when it does happen, like, it somehow happens that the woman is to blame. Like she was too sexy or she had a drink or do you know what I mean? And it's like you talked about the difficulties once you have kids. I personally am a non-parent, but I know so many women that after they've had children, not only are they unfairly devalued by their teams when their mind is exactly the same way, but there's this kind of you must work 60, 80 hours a week thing that's just not compatible with it. And so, yeah, this is why you see the heavy concentration of women making games being like in their 20s and, early 30s.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I'm not, listeners out there, I'm not just trying to go over this and say, oh, it's so awful for us, it's so awful for us, but I want to bring awareness to some of these issues because I think that a lot of people have just this kind of sheltered stereotype of what it's like, or I've heard so many people, oh, well, women just aren't good at, gaming design or software design, or women are just not funny. No, it's not that women are not funny. I mean, if you are out there in the comedy club 6 nights a week, 7 nights a week, watching comedy night after night, whether you're a male or female, I guarantee you will leave saying, I think the women are funnier. Not because women are funnier or men are funnier, but because, like you said, the women have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, 4 times as hard. And I'm sure the same is or very similar in gaming, is that you have to shine brighter.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just, oh, well, she... and you can't, dating is very difficult too, because there's always that, oh, well, she just slept with so-and-so and that's why she's getting this and that. And
can we talk about that for a minute? Like, because that makes me so mad. Like guys, because the main way they kind of value women sometimes is by our looks or our sexual attractiveness, and they see us as sexual beings, and they somehow perceive women in my industry as having like sexual power. Oh, that woman just got a job as a journalist because she's pretty. And just because they might value us that way, they don't see all the politics and BS you have to deal with along the way. And, if that were true, then every gorgeous woman I know would just be a game developer. And it's a total lie about us, and it's not true.
It is a total lie, and it's actually a detriment.
Yeah,
guys, listen to me, male and female. It's a detriment. People in our society value good looks and they value certain attributes, but these attributes are actually a detriment. I'm going to use an example that is not related to gaming or stand up, because so that you guys listeners can really understand. So, bulimia and anorexia is the exact same disease as overeating. It's a different side of the exact same coin. The psychology is the same. Everything is the same about it. But because in our society, being thin is extremely valued, people that have bulimia and anorexia tend to be made fun of. It's socially appropriate to demean them, diminish them, etc., etc. Yet if you're overweight, these are the exact same psychological disorders, then you are given sympathy. You're given, people give you a break because they say, oh, you can't help it, you're overweight, whatever, etc. These are the exact same things. It's the same thing, the exact same thing with gaming and stand-up. If you're good looking, this is the same detriment as being, for a woman as being, maybe unattractive, but it's actually worse because you get no sympathy and you're kind of attacked for it. So if you're good looking or sexually appealing, then people use that to attack you instead of if you're, unattractive, people can say, well, maybe this person has talent or skill, whatever, because they're unattractive. So the value and the attack is still the same because it's based on appearance, not on talent or merit.
It's totally true. And I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not going to be like don't interpret what I'm about to say as like low self-esteem, but I'm not beautiful. Like I'm good looking, I work
You're pretty
out.
Cute. You're pretty cute.
Okay, but I'm not. I look at my friends like, I have friends that are truly gorgeous in this industry, and I see the fog of stuff they have to deal with, which is unwanted sexual attention, people putting them into a box. And I know for me as a leader, I'm a head of development for a company. My mission at PAX this last weekend was to walk into meetings and to establish myself as an equal and to network in that manner as someone who is powerful and someone that you should take seriously. And I really... Do you know what I mean? Like if I were, a model, like say, Jessica Chobot is,
it would be even
I know
worse.
It would make my job much harder. The one part of my looks I'm most happy for is the fact that I'm so tall, because I've actually found this in meetings that when guys are talking down to me, which does happen in meetings, I will stand up because it kind of gives me a
physical intimidation. I mean? Yeah,
it gives me some physical height, saying like, "Look, you will take me seriously."
Unless if you were physically petite, maybe they wouldn't take you seriously, which is silly because someone that is petite doesn't change their intellectual
brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your Polygon article, which I read, and some of the other articles you've written.
We're going to get to the depressing stuff?
I don't want to get super depressing, but I thought it was a great article. And you discussed some of the daily harassment of women in the gaming industry and how harassment of women, because a lot of people use the argument that, hey, men in gaming get harassed too, or in my situation, women, men in stand-up get hate mails too. It's not this. It's the same. You guys just need to grow up and deal with it. And you talk about how harassment towards women is specifically different. I just want you to know, I had a very, very difficult time completing the article, not because you weren't a wonderful writer, but because I have experienced many of this similar harassment, and it was just too painful to read, and it took me 2 sittings to go through the article.
Wow. Yeah, I got that a lot. I got it from guys that were like, I had no idea it was this bad. To me, I have to tell you the truth with that article. I banged that out on my couch in about 50 minutes, maybe 2 hours, because I'm just writing the stories of my friends, like just a few stories of my friends. And this is every day for me. Like I woke up Saturday and someone had sent me 26 pornographic emails of women in sexually degrading positions just to kind of shock and intimidate me, like rape porn. What
is the purpose of this harassment? Do you think it's jealous projection? Do you think, because maybe there's good people out there who are listening and they're like, oh my gosh, what do these people have time to do this? Are you kidding me? This is, like, what do you think is the purpose? Because I know for me, I think a lot of it is jealousy, hatred, projection. I had one guy create an email. I think it was, I can't remember the email, but it was like, I hate Rosie Tran at Yahoo, just to send me this hateful, like he actually spent the time. That takes like a couple, at least 15, 30 minutes out of his day to actively hate me so much that he would, create this email address, because you have to validate emails and then go and do this. So it was like a process of anger, hatred, resentment. It wasn't just, well, let me just leave a tweet, a tweet. Maybe I could see a tweet. It takes a couple minutes, whatever. But to create a whole new email for you to go and look up a pornographic picture and go and, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I think it's about power. I think that men, I think that they perceive like gamers, they feel like it's their hobby and they tie it to their identity to an unhealthy degree. And please don't take this as an anti-gamer statement. I love video games. You come over to my house like it's just a shrine to them. But I think that there are some people that define themselves as being gamers to an unhealthy degree. Like if you ask me how I describe myself, it would be I'm a leader, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a software developer. Gamer wouldn't be part of that identity, but it is how some people do it.
You're not a real gamer. That's why you need to be attacked.
Exactly. But they sense women obtaining power in the industry, and they've been told their whole lives they should have the power. And games are a massive empowerment fantasy. So I think it's about putting the uppity woman in her place and shutting her up and humiliating her. Like, I think it's funny when I get porn sent to me. I'm like, that's not very good porn. Like that's the reaction I have sometimes. But I think it's about power. Would you agree? Would you disagree?
I think, a lot of people, I think a lot of these people have been around for a long time, and the internet kind of just brings it forward. For the listeners out there, I just also want you to know that this isn't everyone. Statistics have shown that it's less than 10% of people that are repeatedly doing these this trolling. And it's the same thing with rape and sexual assault and other things, that it's less than 10% of the population that does these heinous, horrible trolling and acts of violence and other things. So, 90% of you guys out there are good guys, and I want to acknowledge you guys for that. And I have been harassed online, and then I've had other people come to my kind of chivalrous rescue. I had a couple negative comments, and then I had other people going on the forums and defending with the positive comments. So it's not all, awful, but these people, I think, are very unhappy, deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
And like you said, entitled, and feel that maybe gaming is theirs, or stand up is theirs, or certain things should be a certain way. And when it goes out of their comfort zone, they, anyone that feels the need to attack is defending. And when you're defending, it's because you're attached to something. So I definitely think that they have, in your case, I can only guess, I don't know what kind type of people, but that they're attached to the gaming, like you said, as theirs, that it's only a certain type of person can do it. Or, maybe they were rejected by women and they think, well, women are outsiders, gaming is my secret, whatever, XYZ, and a woman is not allowed to entrench on, a pretty woman, especially. That's like the enemy, right?
I think some of them had like a girl reject them in high school, and they're still bitter about it. So, it's like forevermore. But I mean, I just imagine myself like, I don't know, like when I was a teenager, the internet was just starting to exist. It was the late 90s, and I can just imagine, like, I have empathy for where they are, like the powerlessness of that. And I know that a lot of these people are hurting, but I think they don't understand the consequences of their actions, by constantly harassing me.
Do you get some of the repeat? Yeah. Do you get repeat harassers, the same people that you recognize?
I absolutely do. But you read this story, my Polygon article, and it sounded like it was similar to your experience. Like my friend that wrote about in the article has like had somebody that has created pornographic fan fiction of her and sends it to her constantly. And she has this fear constantly when she's out, when she's meeting people. Is this the guy that's doing this to me? And it makes her deeply distrustful of her friendships and relationships around her. I mean, that takes a huge toll on her. So, it's just... this stuff has so many awful consequences,
It does. And I think the sad thing is that also statistics have shown that people that are negative tend to be more posters, commenters on things, whereas people that tend to be positive, if they're a fan of something, they don't go out of their way. Like if you're watching a YouTube video, for example, if you're playing a game and you're a big fan of it, you tend to just enjoy it or maybe thumbs up it or like it, but you don't go out of your way. And so the negative side of that is that we see all of the trolling comments and the negative comments, but we're not seeing the positive ones. So I just want to encourage fans out there too, that if you like something, leave a positive comment, put a smiley face, send an email to, gamers and say, hey, I love what you do. Because I know for me, I just got some negative emails about the podcast and I got a couple positive ones too. And those positive ones, made the negative ones. I was like, who cares?
No, I totally, I also think, I think you can never reach out to other women enough. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a stand-up, but I can know that like my female friendships in the games industry, I deeply treasure them. And there was a woman I met this weekend at PAX Prime, and she's early 20 something, and she's obviously going to go on to be a superstar. And I took some time today to write her to like get in touch with her and say like, look, I just want to let you know you are awesome. You can do anything in this industry you want to. And don't let anyone tear you down. And I really think as women, we really need to be there for each other. And because it's the only thing that can keep you sane with this stuff sometimes, It
is. And, it's... even though we are both in the public eye, it's not just women like us who are getting some of this. Now they have the bullying online, and a lot of young girls are getting bullied or getting harassed on Facebook. So this is just very, very important issue. And I think women need to stick together and not, hate on each other, because there's so much hate out there. There's already
we've
so
got
much.
enough people against us. Let's not, this is just completely unproductive. I have a rule that there are definitely women in my industry I may not be friends with, but I have a rule to never critique them publicly. If I have an issue with them, I will take it to them privately, but I'm not going to tear them down or get into some fight publicly, because we've already got so much stuff against us. I mean, why add to that,
That's true. And it's just, it's also a statistic that's proven that women are the most discriminated group out of any ethnic minority.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It is. I will find the statistic online and maybe post it on outoftheboxpodcast.com with this episode, but it's, the most discriminated group is women. It's not a specific ethnic minority. A lot of people, I think it was a survey, and a lot of people guessed that it was, Black people or maybe Middle Eastern people, but it wasn't an ethnic group. It was actually women.
Wow.
So let's go through some of these case studies and just discuss them in maybe a little bit deeper than the article. I know you said you wrote it in an hour or two with all your stories. So I'm just going to pick a couple things that I thought were interesting. I mentioned earlier the idea that, gaming harassment or this type of harassment happens to men and women, and that women just need to get over it and deal with it. Have you seen the comparison of harassment, and is it worse with women than men? And how is the harassment different?
Well, I have men that I know in the industry that have similar industry profiles to me. I'm a public figure. I'm in the public eye. And, I've sat down with them and said, do you get stuff like this? And I can tell you anecdotally, it is much worse for me. I don't want to get into the whole Gamergate thing, but I will tell this as quickly as I can. With Zoe Quinn, basically, she's an indie game dev. She lives in my city. She's awesome. She did Depression Quest. So this thing exploded this week, last week actually, where she was being accused of basically using her feminine wiles with journalists to curry positive press for her game. And what you saw was this mob of people completely attacking Zoe. And, meanwhile, the journalist that's allegedly cheating on his wife, nobody cares about, because he's a guy, it's this complete double standard. So I think the kind of harassment that we get is different. I think maybe, I think that women are undermined and have our credibility questioned, and, or sexually, we get sexual innuendo and rape threats and things like that.
Do you think a good-looking male in the gaming industry would ever get the type of harassment that a good-looking woman gets?
No.
I know. I just wanted to hear you say
it. There's a particularly good-looking guy in our industry, Damon Hatfield. I think Damon is ridiculously hot, but I've never heard Damon on any podcast he's ever done complain about crazy women threatening to rape him or something like that. It's a different thing. We all have to deal with this kind of gamer aggression and unhappiness and being told we're wrong all the time. That's par for the course. But women are under a special level of scrutiny. And there aren't mobs that go out to destroy men in this field the same way they went after Zoe, the same way they went after Jen Frank, the same way they're trying to go after Anita Sarkeesian. It's just proportionally not the same thing at all.
I think a positive that can come out of this, ladies listening to the podcast, is that in a way, we are very, very powerful. If we are threatening all these men so much that they're going out of their way to attack us to this degree, then there is some type of power and femininity that I think is important to understand, because a lot of times the feminine is portrayed as very, very weak. And I think that women need to become empowered and realize the power that we do have as women and the power that we have to make a difference. Yeah. Because that is something that we can take a negative and make a positive. Because I know growing up, my father is a very sexist person, and the feminine was portrayed to me as being very weak, lesser than. And if all of these men are so threatened by it, obviously there is something in femininity that is very, very powerful. So I would encourage all women out there to look inside yourself and try to encourage other women, because this is something that is inside of us and it can be used for good and not evil.
Can you print everything you just said on a t-shirt so I can buy it? Because I totally agree with that.
It's totally so true.
With everything you said. You see this in tech constantly, and you see women that are brainwashed into it too, that the feminine is somehow lesser or it's disdained on. And you see it with people blasting, the Kim Kardashian app, which is a good game, by the way, and it's like, the feminine is awesome, and we should celebrate that. And there is power in that. And I'm tired. You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of seeing teenage girls bashed in our culture. I'm tired of seeing teenage girls told they're petty or gossipy or moody or all of that. The teenage girls I remember were smart and dedicated and socially savvy and understood like how they presented themselves and the power it gave them, while the guys were off obsessed with masturbation and boobs. I'm tired of this stuff being talked down to, because it has consequences.
It is. And there's, generations of women, young women, being valued for taking naked selfies on Twitter and doing things like that, when, it seems very odd, because we're in the 21st century and things are moving so fast and so quickly. Yet I feel sometimes like I'm in a 1950s version of the 21st century, because the pendulum has swung so far. And I think it's just important. But ladies out there, if you think feminine is weak, you are totally wrong. Feminine energy is one of the most powerful energies on earth. And if, tell that to Mother Nature in a hurricane that she's weak. I don't think so.
I have to say, our company is very interesting, because our engineering culture, you show me another company out there puts out a game that's the quality of Revolution 60, that has as many female software engineers on staff as my company. And there is an awesomeness to the way we work. And I think the industry should freaking come study us, because it's not, I've seen the way that male software engineering teams work, because there's this alpha dog and rivaling and people telling them they're wrong and screaming. And the way we work is a lot more like an episode of Star Trek. It's, it's consensus. It's talking through ideas. If two people disagree, we'll bring on a third team member and bring in an opinion, and it's respectful. And it's like, hey, let's build something together. I hear your concerns there. You're not going to win this time. I'll let you win the next time. And as a leader, I constantly say, I'm wrong. I'm not the top dog that's trying to, prove my awesome alpha authority. It's a group activity. And that is feminine energy. It's a better way to work. It's a better way to get things done. And I'm tired of that being devalued.
It should be highly valued, and actually admitting you're wrong as a leader is not a sign of a weakness at all. It's a sign of a strength.
Right.
Because anyone who can admit they're wrong is someone who is open-minded. And many times, and this is not to bash men, but anyone who has been in a work environment with an extremely alpha type CEO person or leader person knows that, sometimes it's their way or the highway. And that is definitely not the best way to look at things or deal with things, because it's just common sense that 10 brains are better than one brain, even if that one brain has an extremely IQ. And so to think about that someone has that mentality of your way, their highway, and it tends to be an ego-driven way of thinking, which tends to be male. And that's not to bash men. It just tends to be an alpha male personality trait. So I definitely agree with you. And I think that admitting that you're wrong as a leader is a huge strength. That is a huge strength.
It's a difference in being, and I'd say I've seen women with that kind of alpha male mentality to it, because I think you can get inculcated into it because it's like a way you think you can get respect. But I think there's a real difference in a boss and a leader. And I think a boss just wants to sit there and, issue orders from on high, and it's all about them, what they want.
It's not about the team. Yeah.
It's not about the team. if you're working with people as a leader, why would you hire someone you don't value their opinion or what they think? I mean, the jobs I've had where I've just been a minion are tremendously demoralizing. So, I'm just saying, like, I think that women have so much to offer, the game industry. And I think we're being constantly devalued at every single turn. Like you see us talking a lot about female journalists because there are more female journalists than game developers. But, how many female executives can you name at Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft? How many art directors do you know in the industry? How many celebrity developers can you name that are female? And the odds are really, really stacked against us in ways the system hasn't really thought about. It sounds amazingly similar to stand up.
It is very, very similar from what you're saying. And I want to talk about something that you mentioned that is very important. Mm-hmm. You said women emasculating themselves to get respect in the industry. Yeah. This is something that is very similar in stand-up. Women that are more masculine tend to get more respect. And that's why it's, unfortunately, it seems to be a little bit easier if you happen to be a lesbian in stand-up or more masculine in that way. And it's something that happens in business as well, where certain women, because they're not accepted for their positive attributes, feel that they need to become masculine in a way to get respect or to get, or, we see a lot of women higher ups, and this seems silly, but it's been statistically shown that men, quote unquote, tend to respect women that have shorter hair, that wear pantsuits instead of skirts, and this is just silly because this is all superficial stuff and doesn't change your mental well-being at all. It's all perception. Yeah. And so I think that not just having women in these industries very visible, but having feminine women. Yeah. Because the feminine part is the part that is devalued, not the woman part. Because masculized women, tend to have higher positions of power, tend to have more respect, or tend to be more, if they're asexualized in some way. Right. So the whole value is still the sexual and the physical. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've never thought about that before. I think it's immensely true. I also think our culture really rewards you if you kind of, I don't know about you, but like you talked about your dad. My father was an extreme right-wing Christian gynecologist. And so, yeah, right. So there was a lot of internal sexism that I myself had to get over because I was kind of, brought up in this very toxic soup. And I see so clearly in my industry how women are kind of rewarded for saying, oh, that feminism stuff, that's just not important. I'm going to do my thing. Or, God, look at that woman. Like, she won't do her thing, or she just wants to go have babies. And have you seen Django Unchained? I have not. Oh, I was going to say, it's just like Samuel L. Jackson. So in Django Unchained, the plot is slavery. Right. And Jamie Foxx's character says, the worst slave of all time is the house slave, because he does the master's bidding, and that's Samuel L. Jackson's character. So Samuel L. Jackson, even though he's a slave, he's like the head slave. So he kind of has his job is to demean and diminish all of the slaves even more, but he's proud to do it because he's kind of like the top slave, right? Right. And so that's kind of what you're talking about exactly, where these women are patted on the back and rewarded to diminish other women. Right. I mean, you have to have seen this. I mean, I can imagine it in your world. Like, I could so easily imagine that. Like, because if you're going to blast the other woman, yeah, I know a lot of women in stand-up who get rewarded, like you said, for having the nude picture on their CD cover, right? Or or they're highly encouraged to, and it's so demeaning. I was pitching an all-female stand-up comedy show years ago. Oh my God, please do that. And I had pitched it, and I was told, and I should have kept these emails because I probably could have won $100 million lawsuit. I was told by multiple executives, nobody wants to see cute, funny women doing stand-up. And now, with Chelsea Lately, right, and her success and all these successes with other cute women doing stand-up. Now it's like all the rage.
Right.
But, you know, 10, 15 years ago when I pitched this, I was told in emails, like they had no fear of just emailing it to me in a provable form where I could just like, you know, call Gloria Allred and just sue. They had no issue putting it in an email. Nobody wants to see cute, funny women tell jokes, Rosie.
That's crap. That's crap. It's complete BS. I'm sorry. It's crap.
Well,
I mean,
now it's,
yeah.
you know, now it's been shifted quite a bit, you know, and I'm not a fan of Chelsea, but, you know, she actually broke the barrier for a lot of women because she's Chelsea Handler, who is a big star at E! She just left E! for Netflix. Yeah. But
I'm torn on her too. Like
I'm torn on her. I'm torn on her because I think I'm proud that she's out there because she's kind of breaking down barriers, but I'm not 100% excited about the material that she does. I think it's a bit, you know, not as empowering as it could be.
I kind of agree. I think she comes from a generation that's just kind of a little bit too much of my parents' generation versus mine. And it's like you said, like I'm not going to tear her down. I think she's out there, but like, I mean, I was watching something today after Joan Rivers died, and you know she's tearing her apart, and I'm like, I'm not a massive fan of Joan Rivers, but you know, it's like, why are you doing that? Who do you think that helps? So yeah.
We got to wrap up soon, so I want to go over a couple more of these. I know I could talk to you for another 3 hours. So let's go with the second example that you gave in the article, which we talked about a little bit earlier. The stereotype or the myth that women in gaming have it very easy because all you have to do is be good looking to make it, because there's not that many women.
Right.
Now, this is just absolutely ridiculous, but you have seen this as a belief that many men have in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's absolutely true. You know, I've talked about the troubles if you're like particularly gorgeous, like how you get unwanted attention. But let's talk about the flip side of this. Like I know women, like my friend Nicole Tanner was in that article, and Nicole is awesome. She's a fantastic journalist and like just unbelievably badass in every way that a woman can be, crazy talented. And she is at PAX, a major event in our industry, along with a bunch of other women in the industry. And like you can go through her YouTube video. It's just people tearing apart her looks and everyone else's looks on the panel, because like women have been presented to men in video games for so long as only being valued for our looks that they literally can't see beyond that. If you have like, you know, it's just this crazy double standard. So you can't win. You can't be beautiful. You can't be ugly. You have to like this magical mix in between attractive and not attractive. You know, and then if you do, you're not going to be liked by some people. So it's just like you can't win.
It's so funny you say that, because that tends to be the main attack is looks.
Yeah.
You know, I have videos on YouTube and instead of commenting on my material, many of the video comments are, you know, oh, I would F her or I wouldn't F her, or, oh, she's hot, she's not hot. And then, you know, a thread of YouTube commenters arguing whether, you know, they would sleep with me or not. I'm like, did you guys watch the jokes at all?
That's got to be so horrible, though. Like, I really feel for you, because at least I can put out a game and I get people reacting to my game. And I think that would hurt me if like all my professional work was about guys wanting to fuck me. That would really hurt me.
It doesn't hurt as much as it used to when I was young. And the crazy thing is that, you know, I'm 30 now, but I started in this industry when I was in high school.
Right.
And the amount of attacks I got from grown men, like 35-year-old men, when I was like a 19-year-old girl, like how how insecure are you that you are sending death threats and threats, you know, to a 19-year-old? How threatened are you? But, you know, I would get, you know, you're funny, you're unfunny, you're the only reason you get booked is because you're cute, you're awful, this and that. If I'm so awful, don't watch my stand-up. Like, I don't get it.
I don't know what's so hard about just like just meeting a woman and looking her in the eye and evaluating her on her ideas. I mean, you know, like I just can't even.
It is.
I can't even. Sorry.
And I think, you know, Oprah started the school for girls in Africa, and she said the reason that she did a school for all girls is because, you know, when you transform women, you actually transform the world, because a lot of these, you know, men are learning their belief structures from their home life. And so women, if you have little boys, it is up to you to make sure that you teach them to respect women. And women, it's so important for you to work on yourselves and respect yourself, because these men are getting their role models from, and it's not your fault, if your son happens to be a troll, but a lot of women do pass down the negative beliefs that they were brainwashed from their patriarchal, so for example, you said you grew up in a very conservative,
yeah, I did,
kind of crazy environment. If you didn't work on yourself and fix those internal issues, if you had kids, you would pass that negative patriarchal system down to your kids. So
absolutely.
So it's very important for us to work on ourselves and to fix some of the issues that we learned growing up.
Absolutely.
Case number 3, you talk about how women should just, laugh off the harassment and not take it. That's my co-host over there, Mitzi, the dog.
I was worried that was my dog, actually. I was like, oh my God. Good.
No, that's my co-host, Mitzi. She likes to bark once an episode.
That's great. I love dogs. Don't worry about it.
She's a known barker in every episode, so the listeners are used to her barking. But so you talk about how women should just laugh it off and not take it personal. How is this type of harassment, difficult to, I can explain my experience, but your experience in gaming, difficult to laugh off? Guys get harassment. Why can't us as women just not take it personal?
You have to. You have to, because you get so much more of it. You do have to, but it has a human cost. It does. I don't know. I sometimes read my Twitter feed, and it's hard to take in that amount of negativity without it being reflected in my marriage and my life. So you absolutely do grow, like Hillary Clinton said, skin like a rhinoceros. But this isn't a matter of just women being overly sensitive. Rape culture is real. 1 out of 4 women will be assaulted in our life. And, it just undermines us. What are your experiences here?
My experience is that it is difficult sometimes, because everything that happens to us, whether you're male or female, affects you, and it's whether you like it or not. And I think we can try to not take it personal, which is something I've done, is just working on myself to let go of negative energy, let go of negative comments, not take things personal. I recently got a hate mail from someone who was stalking me on Twitter. I blocked them. They created another account to continue to harass me. I blocked that account, and then they actually listened to podcast episodes just to send me email critiques of the episodes of how awful they are. Why don't you just not listen, person that hates me so much?
Right.
I don't want to name them and give them more attention and more fuel for their, fire. But it is, I do work on myself and practice trying to let it go, not take it personal. But there's, the only reason I'm getting it is not because I'm quote unquote so awful. It is specifically because I'm a woman in stand-up, because I know many, many male stand-ups that have podcasts and other things, and they do not get this type of harassment.
Right.
So I think that it's an issue that needs to be brought awareness to. But, unfortunately, I can only control myself. And so I work constantly on trying to not take it personal. But it is something that needs to be brought to the awareness so people know what we're dealing with here.
I couldn't agree more. And I just know we've got to go, but I feel you cannot stress it enough. There is an organized mob effort out there now to attack women that didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. And the cool thing is, we can connect with each other, like you and I connected over this, and this is fantastic. It has benefits, but it's also easier to go through and dox women online, to attack them, to research their past, to release naked pictures of them, to discredit them. And there is an organized operation to attack women in a beyond sexist and misogynist way that's never existed before. And it's destroyed 3 of my friends' careers lately. And it could be me tomorrow. You could wake up tomorrow and see them attacking me, or my co-founder, or someone else I know. And that's just the reality of when we're living.
It is. Now, what do you think is a way that we can create a solution for this problem? Because bringing awareness is, the first step. So the listeners out there can learn about what is going on and maybe be a little bit more sympathetic, or if you're a fan of a woman, to send more positive comments to kind of offset and inspire and empower. What are some ways that you think that the listeners out there who are maybe fans of women or who didn't know that this was going on can support and make kind of maybe undo some of this crazy internet harassment?
Well, I think what I need to see in my industry is guys stepping it up big time.
Yes. Yay!
We've got to see that, because when I address this stuff, I'm just, the loud feminist with opinions. What I say is going to be automatically discounted. But when you have a guy standing up to another guy as a peer, that has a power that I just don't have. It does. And we need, the reason they have attacked white knighting and made it like a bad concept is because it's so powerful. So what we need is for guys to raise their consciousness on this stuff and just call it out when they see it. And it's just something as simple as I don't know how guys talk to each other. This is how I imagine it. Hey, bro, knock it off.
Hey, dude, that's not cool.
Yeah, dude, that's not cool. It's really simple. It's something, it's nothing for you to do. This is how we change this thing. I also have to say, when I talk about this stuff, I'm inundated with men that write me oh, if I knew who that was, I would go, beat him up or run him up flagpole or whatever. And they kind of threaten violence, or they want you to go to the police. And I appreciate the sentiment involved with that, but that kind of anger and aggression isn't what I need. It's like when people ask me why I don't take everything I have to the police, it's because I would be there every single day at this point in my career. I'm saving that card for when I really, really have a guy that's coming to my house and bothering me and is really going to hurt me. We don't need you to do this macho thing. We just need you to hear us and to stop it when you see it. So,
and to validate that it's not some crazy hysterical woman.
Right.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I've seen this, with my husband bringing it up. Sometimes, unfortunately, because of the way our society is set up, people do respect the male opinion more. And that is a technique that they're using in the rape awareness in high schools. Is they're teaching, let's give an example so the listeners can understand, is say there's one guy that has a very misogynistic rape mentality about, maybe drugging girls or getting them drunk to get laid. Typically, the statistic is that the 5 other guys with him will not have this opinion, but will go along with him because they feel that is being, they don't want to be called out or they want to be masculine. So 5 of the guys out of this group of 6 guys disagrees with that misogynistic mentality, but doesn't say anything. Wow. So they're trying to raise awareness with guys. It's you can do reverse peer pressure. If you hear some guy saying, oh, well, I let Brianna have it. I emailed her this and she's not going to do this and that. And you're a gamer. And you're gaming with this guy, it's okay to reverse peer pressure and say, you know what, dude, that is not cool at all. And you're being a troll. And you can even make it fun and tease the guy and say, you know what, you're being a total troll.
Yeah.
And that type of behavior will shame or humiliate the person into realizing what they're doing and realizing that it's not an acceptable way. So, you made an excellent point that just saying something can actually embarrass the person into not doing it anymore, or taking it back, or realizing that their behavior is inappropriate. And that is, something that they're doing in high schools right now as a rape crisis to help young boys realize, hey, if the 5 guys out of the group think rape is super uncool and drugging a girl just to get laid is uncool, if the 5 guys say something to the one guy, young men will be embarrassed and shamed into switching their ideology.
Yeah. And I think I look at this example of all the celebrity photos that got leaked over this weekend. I mean, I think guys don't see it with other guys that this is kind of a sex crime in a way. What happened to these women? It's not scandal. It's awful. I mean, tell your guy, like, there are millions of women out there. They've taken their clothes off with consent. They're sexy as hell. Like, go enjoy that stuff with consent. I mean, I think if you could just like change this consciousness and get people to understand that stuff like that is problematic, I think it could really improve things.
It is. And like I said, 90% of men are not sex offenders and not trolls online. So if that 90% guys listening, you think about your kid sisters, think about your mothers, think about your female friends.
Yeah.
Imagine them being harassed and how awful that would be. So if you are part of that 90% of awesome guys out there, let's step up and say something to the 10% of guys who are misogynistic, a-holes, jerks, etc. Because your word means so much more than our word, unfortunately, to that type of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to wrap up. I'm so sad. I wish we could go on for 2 or 3 more hours.
Yeah, I would start a whole podcast with you. This is good. I do a lot of bad podcasts. This is a good one.
Yay! That's awesome. So how can people find you online, on Twitter? What's your website? How can people buy your games and support you and support a female-friendly environment?
Absolutely. If you follow me on Twitter, I am embarrassingly active there. I'm Spacekat Gal. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. My game is Revolution 60. I promise it is a awesome game. It's gotten stellar reviews. It's Mass Effect meets Heavy Rain. It's a very narrative, hardcore driven, story-based game. It's awesome. And you can support me by checking out and buying it. It's only $6. That's it. I also write a lot, so I'll be in Polygon soon and Kotaku soon as well.
That's awesome. Brianna Wu, everyone. Please follow her on Twitter and buy her game and leave positive comments on any gaming sites for her. This has been Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Don't forget, Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetees.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetees.com. We're always on SoundCloud and Stitcher and downloadable on iTunes. Visit outoftheboxpodcast.com and click on the support button. And guys, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at FunnyRosie and leave me positive comments about this episode if you enjoyed it. And also, we now have a support button on the website if you guys would like to support us. We're taking Bitcoins and Litecoins. And also, we want you to have a great day. This has been Out of the Box with Rosie Tran.